I promise I'm not going to go over my time. I actually feel like I'm going to be short on that. So I would appreciate lots and lots of questions. And usually I enjoy having an interactive conversation, but I don't think that's going to be quite as interactive as I'm used to. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this. And everything went to different screens. Hold on just a second. All right. So basically, I want to just talk about considerations for Prophet 21 e-commerce integrations. It's kind of it's pretty much so what I've been doing as a career for quite some time, but we'll get into that in just a second. So soon you're going to discover in these considerations what you need to do, what Prophet 21 can and can't do, and questions to ask a potential partner that you're looking to integrate with Prophet 21. So I'm going to start off with a little bit about me. Why should you listen to me on this particular topic? I've been working with Prophet 21 directly since around the year 2000. It was Prophet 21, the company. Commerce Center was still the product name. We waited for version 7.5 to come out because we needed new features. So that will date me for anybody who's been around that long. I've been working with Prophet 21 with Prophet 21 e-commerce since 2008, where I used their B2B seller platform. I started my own e-commerce platform in 2011. In that time, I wrote my own APIs into Prophet 21 in 2013, and I have been involved in well over 40 different e-commerce projects, all with Prophet 21 on the back end. So what does that really mean to you? Why does it matter to you? I've been working with Prophet 21 for 22 years. It's pretty much so the only work that I'm doing right now. I've been doing e-commerce for 14 years. As far as I'm aware, there's only one Prophet 21 related e-commerce vendor that's actually been doing this longer than I have. I've been running SimpleWeb for 11 years. This is a long-term thing that I've been doing. It's not a fly-by-night, and it's been successful for quite a few companies. I've had my own API for Prophet 21 that my system uses and other developers have used for more than 9 years. And it basically gives people the tools to make sure that e-commerce is successful. And I'm down in the trenches with my clients. And so that's something that I take a lot of pride in, is that I'm not just saying, here's my solution and walking away. I'm actually trying to make sure that these solutions are things that are working for you and your company, the way that you and your company work. All right. So digging into some of the considerations that you're going to need about what Prophet 21 integration really is. So what do you need? Now, these are some questions, but at the beginning of this project, the chances are you don't know what you don't know. There's so many nuances to an e-commerce project that as you're choosing an integration partner, even if it's the third or fourth round that you've gone through, you still really don't know what you don't know. So what do you need? Let's go over some pretty good questions to get you started. Is your business complex or high volume sales? And I'm going to dig into each of these a little bit more in just a minute. What is the internal technical level of your company, and who's going to be doing this work? And do you have a current e-commerce site, and do you have to make sure that that those users are getting the feature set that they still need? All right, so going into complex or high volume sales. So this is, is your sales cycle, does it take a week or does it take months? Most companies that I work with in Prophet 21, I usually see that their sales cycle takes multiple months, and they've got salespeople who have been there for years. Sometimes those products don't go really well into an e-commerce website where you think you're just going to throw it up and get sales happening the next week. Sometimes it takes a lot of nuance to get all of the information about those products onto the website in a way that the consumers will actually buy. One of my little truisms is that a confused customer won't buy. And so your sales cycle the longer your sales cycle is, the more informative and rich your website has to be to make sure that that person knows they're getting the right product. Are your items highly configurable? If there's a lot of things that that you have for your product that make it different, but it visually doesn't look different, you have to really make sure that the website can express that this is the product that the customer is really interested in. And do you actually customize the work for your customers? I have some clients that do custom printing and custom engraving on their products, which makes it a little bit more complex. And it's not just here's something that you can buy at Home Depot or Target. This is something that is really customized to the user. Now, those all sound like complicated negatives, but when it comes down to it, they're actually really positives, because that means that those customers are already doing business with you for a reason, and they're going to be coming back to you, and your business and the way that your business runs is why they already do business with you. High volume sales is a completely different beast. That there's plenty of my websites that do that as well, but sometimes it gets really competitive, and it's just kind of up to what the market does. All right, so what is your internal technical level of your company? So do you have your own IT people on staff? Who's going to be making sure that the connections to the website are still up? Depending on the vendor that you choose, you might actually have to have hardware running inside your network, or services that you have to keep running. So who's going to be doing that? Even my system still requires scheduled import service manager. So somebody needs to make sure that that's running all day long. And depending on who's on the call, they'll get this joke, but you have to make sure that the cache drawer gets closed and reopened as well. Do you have marketing people on staff? Are you going to expect your marketing people to be doing work on the website that really is more of a skill for the IT people? And who's really going to be doing the daily work of the website? Who's going to be making sure the orders import? Who's going to be adding new items? Who's going to be going through and making sure that those items are complete, they're categorized, they have images, they have all their PDFs and spec sheets. So who's going to do these skills, and making sure that you have somebody in place before you start the project, or at least somebody that you're thinking about, to understand the scope of what you're going to be needing, and also working with your implementation partner to find out what some of those requirements are going to end up being. So if you have a current e-commerce website, what's it actually doing? So your current e-commerce website, first off, do you have one? That's much more common than it was just a few years ago, especially after COVID. But what is your e-commerce website doing? How many active users does it have? I've had some of my clients, when transitioning from an old site to a new site, one of the sites had 3,000 users, but only 5 of them had logged in the past 3 months. And so they decided that they would just recreate those users and contact them directly. Others that have 1,000 or more logging in every week, and those require a little bit more to make sure that everything goes in a transition from one site to another. And what features are those customers actually using, so that you can understand the features that you truly need to have in your next e-commerce website, or your next revision of your existing e-commerce website. So Prophet 21 is an interesting beast in general. There's certain things that it can and can't do. There's interesting ways of working with Prophet 21 in e-commerce, but it wasn't originally designed for e-commerce. So there's just some unique things that happen. One of my truisms about Prophet 21 is that Prophet 21 does everything that it says it does, just not how you want it to. There's always something going on in the back end of Prophet 21 with the way that they designed it, that you think it should work one way, and it just doesn't work the way that you're expecting it to. So let's go into a couple of the things that Prophet 21 can't do. Not all the functionality is in their APIs that can be accessed by third parties to be able to do everything that Prophet 21 does. Their APIs have come tremendously far in the past few years, but there's certain things that you can do directly to the database in SQL that they're never going to put into the APIs, and there are certain things that just don't happen in their APIs. There's also some performance considerations that I'd be happy to talk to people about either in the Q&A or at some other time. One of the things that always shocks, frankly, me still and everybody that I work with is the scheduled import service manager order imports can't import tax. So if you've got sales tax coming from a website, there's no way to actually tie that number directly into Prophet 21 without having some back-end process. Typically what happens is it gets calculated on the website, and then Prophet 21 calculates it on the import, and you just kind of cross your fingers and hope that it's close enough. I'm going to say this, the Epicor cloud limits some of the database access. And so if you're on the Epicor cloud, you have all their APIs to be able to do the things that you need to do. But there's things that if you're hosted by Estes Group or on-prem yourself, you'd be able to actually do a little bit more with the database in Prophet 21 than you can when you're on the Epicor cloud. I've heard rumors that there's going to be some changes in that in the next year or two, but purely rumor at this point. So if you're on the Epicor cloud, there's going to be some additional restrictions that you have in what your e-commerce implementation might be able to do. So what can Prophet 21 do? Well, it can do pretty much all of the standard e-commerce things that you want it to if people know how to get into it. You can import orders either through scheduled import service manager or through the APIs. You can get customer-based pricing based off of pricing libraries or contracts, and use all the different features of that pricing. Inventory data has become a really big motivator recently, especially with all the supply chain issues. I've had clients who have been pushing really hard to make sure that their inventory data is updated on their websites as quickly as possible. And we've been finding that the more inventory data you put up onto the website, the better your sales end up being. People want to know that it's really there. And so if they trust your inventory numbers, they're going to be a little bit more confident in placing that order. The bottom line is, if the data is in Prophet 21 and somebody understands how to get into the Prophet 21 database, that data can get onto your website and be used on the website. Now I'm going to put the caveat in there is if they're only using the Epicor APIs, they're going to be limited to only what the Epicor APIs provide them. But if you're interested in getting that data somewhere on your website using something, including user-defined fields and some custom tables, if it's in Prophet 21, it can end up on your website. So a couple of questions to go into with integration partners that you might want to consider as you're going through. I'm racing through this way faster than even my own demo. So go ahead and ask your potential partner, how long have they been working with Prophet 21? That's going to give you an idea of how many of the reoccurring issues they have with Prophet 21 that just seem to come up on every site over and over and over again. How many Prophet 21 clients do they have? This is something that I have seen a lot of vendors come in that they have one implementation with one Prophet 21 customer, and so they put it out there with the product, but it only does what that one customer was interested in instead of a whole bunch of things that Prophet 21 has the ability to be able to do. This one's a little bit of an interesting question. What other ERP systems do they work with? I actually don't work with any ERP systems other than Prophet 21. I know several vendors who work with a lot of ERP systems, and their products work really well with multiple ones, but it has a if they work with a lot of other ERP systems, I've seen the vendors try to focus in on the features that are common between all of them and not want to do a deep dive into one particular ERP system. So it's kind of a back and forth on that. Sometimes it's really a benefit. Other times it limits what they're willing to do. So all that being said, that was kind of the educational portion of this. And again, I'm running through this way fast, so please have lots of questions. I wanted to kind of dig into a newer portion of what the Simple Web platform is doing. I'm going farther into not only the e-commerce aspects of the Simple Web platform, but digging into the integration with third-party services with what I presented at the Connect conference this year as my Augur microservices. So what is a microservice? This is a really big mouthful, but microservices are a collection of small applications that are fine-grained and lightweight. They typically do a small set of tasks well and communicate with each other when they need to. The idea behind these microservices is small applications that work and do a small number of things really well, and because they can communicate with each other, they can be chained together. It's a little bit more technical, so we'll get into kind of what some of the microservices are that I have in my system. So obviously, everything in my system is centered around Prophet 21. I've got shipping microservices for FedEx and UPS and a couple other shippers. Payments for Element and Unified AR, which I'm actually in process of tying the Unified AR credit card processing very tightly into one of my clients' websites. I've got an Amazon seller microservice. I actually just started a big commerce microservice, Google Merchant Center, and a couple of different tax solutions like Avalara. So in this, wanted to kind of give the Amazon microservice as an example of what something can be done. So the problem that one of my clients wanted to solve was that they were getting in range of 200 orders during their busy season coming in over the weekend, and as many as 30 orders per day on weekdays. And basically somebody was having to type all those orders in manually. So there was a large administration overhead in these orders, but they were really great orders that were coming in. So I rewrote the Amazon seller microservice. It was actually my third revision of doing an Amazon seller connection, but integrated it very tightly into Prophet 21. So the Amazon microservice monitors for new orders on Amazon, imports into Prophet 21, checks for completed pick tickets, sends the tracking numbers back to Amazon. So it basically completes the whole loop of an Amazon order getting into Prophet 21 and then telling Amazon that the order has shipped out of your warehouse and here's the tracking number. Amazon is very particular about making sure that that data gets back into their system within 24 to 48 hours, I believe. And this usually happens within about 10 to 15 minutes of all of the different changes happening on the Amazon side or on the Prophet 21 side. So the Amazon microservice also monitors inventory at the Prophet 21 level and updates Amazon with the inventory, and it can do pricing as well. Nobody's turned on that feature. They're too scared to just let it automatically happen, but that's fine. The big piece on the inventory side of this is that if you tell Amazon you have inventory and a sale comes through and you have to cancel it because you no longer have inventory, they get really upset about that. And they'll actually ding your account for it, and it'll end up causing problems. So the other piece of this is that a lot of times Amazon has things listed as bundles. So something that you consider as an each, somebody has put on Amazon as a 2-pack. And so we found ways to use unit of measure and different multipliers to be able to actually match those up with the Amazon ASIN numbers and using the Amazon ASIN numbers as alternate codes to actually link things together and use all of the Prophet 21 data to basically make it a seamless process. So there's actually several other microservices. I actually just started the BigCommerce microservice. It's actually a question that I get quite often from people, is if I support BigCommerce. I just started a project earlier this week to integrate with BigCommerce, basically having the same workflow that the Amazon microservice would have, and in any other third-party APIs that are out there can be integrated in a microservice to connect up to Prophet 21 to push data into and out of Prophet 21. So that was the short version of everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave my contact info up there, and then open things up for questions and comments.
Awesome. Thank you, Stuart. All right, I had some questions come in, so you're in luck. All right, first question.
Yay.
Woohoo. First question, what's the trend in e-commerce with regards to integration footprints? Are e-commerce solutions integrating with more areas of the P21 application, or is the level of integration holding steady?
Excellent question. I'm actually seeing more and more integration into Prophet 21 data. It's actually something that I truly believe in. When I started my system, I wanted Prophet 21 to be the source of authority for as much data as possible. It is the system of record for your business. And so you should be using it to leverage as much information as you can on your website. There's a tremendous amount of information in Prophet 21 that can be used, and there's a tremendous amount of information that you can put into Prophet 21 that nobody knows is even there and available. One of my clients had me write a service that monitors their vendors for the stock at the vendors' warehouses, and we're actually pushing that data into Prophet 21 so that they can use Dynachanges to show vendor stock in their Prophet 21 user interface. I've got another client who is taking that to the next level so that they actually use the Google Merchant Center to take that vendor stock information and tell Google that's how much they've had. They can continue to do AdWords campaigns on Google by saying that they've got the same stock as their vendor, even though their warehouse isn't currently in stock of a particular item. So I'm seeing a lot more integration, a lot tighter. I have seen some other projects that have tried to move the order management side of the process into the website instead of in Prophet 21. And Prophet 21 doesn't like that. It really wants to be in charge of everything. So my recommendation is always to put as much data in P21 as you can.
All right, thank you much. Okay, next question. With an API that has existed going back to the desktop days, has your API evolved with the advent of the middleware server ecosystems?
So that is one of the reasons that that I'm actually rebuilding my system into microservices. So starting back in 2013 with a standard REST API hitting the P21 database directly for everything because there wasn't any other way to do it, made a complete amount of sense. With the advent of the middleware server and the way that the Epicor Cloud actually is implementing things, I honestly, about 3 years ago, found that the direction that API was moving in was not sustainable long term. So in using microservices, I actually have separate microservices for each of the different APIs that I have interacted with in the Prophet 21 middleware server. So I've got one for the transactional APIs and currently one for the e-commerce APIs. And so my system, based on clients' configuration settings, can use either direct database access or go through their APIs, or based on functionality like something that I'm going to be writing for a client very soon is when they want to create a new ship to, I'm not going to go to the database for that. I'm going to go to the APIs for that. And so depending on how the data flows, the microservices are going to be able to choose to use the middleware server or direct to the database, or if it's Epicor Cloud, have to go to the APIs.
All right, thank you much. Okay, this is a performance question. When working with or without the Epicor API, if you're a high volume business, what does your platform do to handle many transactions coming in and out, often in parallel with each other?
So the biggest thing from a performance perspective between my system going direct to the P21 database and the Epicor APIs is speed of pricing. What I see on the Epicor APIs is on average a 1 to 2 second time to get a price. But if you go direct to the database and use their stored procedures, it's about 500 milliseconds. I do a tremendous amount of caching on that as well. And so I monitor a lot of the pricing tables to see if a price could have changed and try to keep it in that cache as long as possible. So I do that both with the Epicor APIs and with the stored procedures. So that's the biggest constraint that I see on the speed that really hits the front end. The rest of it depends on the actual front end of the website. Transactionally, one of the things that I'm getting a much bigger benefit out of the microservices is it's actually a completely distributed auto scaling technology that when things come in, it may not everything happens in the order that it was received, but there's plenty of retries and everything going through in multiple different ways. So if a VPN connection goes down and an order can't go in, then it keeps retrying until it gets it in there. If there's different issues about 30 orders coming in at once, those all end up in a queue to get processed and get monitored as everything goes through. If scheduled import service manager crashes, it sends emails to appropriate people to go and check it. But typically with the microservices, it auto scales on load and then kind of keeps retrying until it gets success. Please let me know if I answered that question, if that made sense, because it was kind of a big question.
So far, so good. If I'll keep an eye out if they send in a no, you didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you built out the architecture of your integration platform, did you go with multi-purpose objects that had many methods, or single purpose objects where each did a single thing? And did you abstract the underlying objects from the APIs, or was it this is like an essay. You gotta
Okay, yeah, no, but that's actually great. Okay, so whoever you are, contact me directly and we can nerd out for like a week on exactly how my infrastructure got set up. So the short version is when I rewrote this, I used a object management or object relational management database application that it actually has what I refer to as a definition file that describes what in P21 terms sometimes lines up to a table. In other API terms, it lines up to an API endpoint, especially for third parties that I don't have access to their databases. But that definition file actually goes through and automatically does code generation across multiple microservices. Once one microservice has the ability to access that data, because they can talk to each other back and forth, there's libraries and SDKs that are internally built to let them talk back and forth. So the definition file creates internal endpoints for the microservice, the external endpoints for the API access, but also all the communication protocols that happen between the different microservices. You'll skewer me for this. It's all written in PHP, but if you're asking this question, it also does gRPC on the back end, so it's extremely efficient and has almost no lag internally. So again, whoever had that question, we could nerd out for like a week.
All right. So does your platform live on the customer server and the cloud, or both? That's a little less of an essay.
Yeah, that's a little, not quite the novel, a little bit easier. So my entire system lives inside of Amazon Web Services, and I do VPN connections in between my individual clients' sites. There's been question about trying to get these into the client sites a little bit more, but what it comes down to is between security, updates, and code deployments, it doesn't make sense for these microservices to land outside of the Amazon infrastructure. I also would not want to inflict anybody to have to run a Docker cluster to try and get something running up on their side. So again, from the get-go, when I started in 2011, one of the foundational things that I wanted to make sure was that I didn't put an unnecessary burden onto the IT staff of the people running Prophet 21. Since then, with the advent of the web UI for P21, one of my very broad requirements is that I want to make sure that my client can run everything from a Chromebook. And so on both sides of that, I want to try and minimize the IT infrastructure and the maintenance on their side, and make sure that everything on my side goes through all of my static code analysis, unit testing, and production to go through my pipelines and get things deployed as fast as possible. There was a lot of technical jargon in there for what sounded like a very simple question, but I'm hoping that one got the answer out too.
Yep, sorry.
There you are.
Buttons. All right, next question.
Technology is hard.
It is, right? It's a good thing I know you guys. So with integrations, there's always the fear that a transaction will get lost as a function of the handoff. Does your platform have logging capabilities such that customers can cross-reference incoming and outgoing transactions to make sure they reconcile?
So from a transaction basis, the pieces that I'm usually dealing with on the transactional level are the orders. And so typically there's I've got all of the raw order data on my side, and then I'm trying to get that over into the Prophet 21 side. And my system will keep attempting it until it actually gets in there. My system knows how to look into the Prophet 21 suspended imports tables to actually be able to get the error messages and kind of give us a clue of what's going on. That was why I made the really bad joke about the cache score. There's a couple of people who I think are on here who get that. But from a microservices level, especially the Amazon microservice, one of the things that we made sure to make sure that we could track everything on there is the Amazon order ID is actually pulled through into Prophet 21 as the customer PO number. So in that case, there's the Amazon order ID, the web reference number that gets generated by my internal systems, and then the Prophet 21 order number, and they all kind of need to line up and match up, and we need to make sure that their statuses come through. And if my system doesn't see those coming through, it tries to alert people or let them know that it didn't see something happen properly, but it actually is pretty rare.
Okay, couple more questions. I have been told that when companies implement e-commerce for P21, they end up adding a lot of data to the item master to support e-commerce needs. What do you see the trend? What do you see the trend in this area being? What is most common?
So that's an interesting question because I'm of the opinion to actually add even more data into the inventory master tables than most people do. I've been going through a process with some of my clients to actually use fields in inventory master that nobody knows about. There's actually a brand name and a manufacturer name field in inventory master, and we use that for making I'm going blank on what it's called, a list of all the suppliers, a line card, basically on the websites. And so we can more easily sort the data through there. There's something that I'm experimenting with. There's actually tables in Prophet 21 that let you store item attribute data. Looks like it was a custom thing that Prophet 21 put in that they never finished up, that I worked with a couple of my clients to figure out how to finish up those tables. And I'm pushing the attribute data now into Prophet 21. The interesting side benefit that should be coming out of that in the next year or two is being able to do both item variants in Prophet 21, where if you're the classic example of that is that if you've got a t-shirt in red, green, and blue, and large, medium, and small, just have one item detail page for it instead of multiple item detail pages, which is the typical way you have to do that in Prophet 21. But also for extremely complex items, having an item configurator where somebody can go to a page for a series of items. And my biggest experience in this is with circuit breakers and other industrial automation. So being able to change the size and the voltage and the amperage on all of the different pieces. And then based on the drop downs that the customer chooses, it knows what the correct item ID is and therefore can get the right price without having to go through a whole bunch of hoops. So there is a long-term plan of a PEM that is going to be able to interact with Prophet 21 at levels that other people don't do. But that's probably going to be sometime in the next year and a half that's going to happen.
Awesome. Thank you much. Okay. Normally with e-commerce, the focus is on transactional files such as sales orders. Do you see any trends with regard to e-commerce platforms doing anything with master file updates, using the e-commerce platform to add customers, add parts, update customer price lists, etc.? Don't forget to cite your sources at the end of the paper.
Well, I do have multiple clients who we've been doing a process that is kind of manual, that they want to evaluate the orders that are coming in and see if it's somebody that they want to create a new customer for automatically. They can't do it automatically now, so it kind of comes in on hold inside the website. Then they look at it and decide if it's an existing customer and line up the customer ID properly if the customer didn't log in. They also might create a new customer for them so that there's a customer record that gets lined up for it. The intention is to actually make that initially a push of a button, so that instead of going into P21 and creating the customer ID, you just push a button that says create that customer and send the order through. And then I've got customers who say they want it to happen automatically, but I want a human being involved in that because I don't want 1,000 spam orders to come through and kind of fill up somebody's Prophet 21 database. So I'm seeing a lot more requests for automation, but it's it's giving features and consoles to users to be able to do things at the push of one button instead of doing things from multiple consoles at having to type in a whole lot of information, to streamline the processes and make it happen a little bit better. So yes, there is a trend in that direction.
All right. I just saw one come in the chat. I'll answer that one. It's a little bit shorter. Are you able to work with multiple UDFs?
Yes, UDFs are crazy. The Going back to one of the really longer questions, the object relational database manager that I put in assumes that every database table across all of the connections is the same. So the way that UDF fields work is they actually create new fields into the tables, and it causes all kinds of interesting problems. That's been solved. So the worst case scenario, if you've got a UDF table that I'm not supporting today, is I write a new definition file, recompile the microservice, and it's in service with that new UDF table within a couple of days, and it picks up the changes that happen in Prophet 21 for UDFs, so that you can actually pull those into the website. Sometimes it takes a little bit more effort to take action on those UDFs just because of them being different. But the data's there, and we can work with it.
All right. I've got one more. In e-commerce, did the pandemic change the expectations of the customer base at all, or have those basic requirements already stabilized?
You know, the basic requirements were already what I was trying to get people to. One of the interesting things in the P21 world is from a website technology, most distributors seem to be about 3 to 5 years behind what the industry standard is, and so a lot of people just wanted to play catch up to what the industry standard was, as opposed to get on the bleeding edge. The biggest thing that I saw was changes in supply chain information. People were much more interested in knowing that items were there. There was a lot more interest in having will call instead of everything shipped or delivered. But those were the two big trends that I saw. The actual functionality of the websites, it was pretty much so the same.
Okay. I don't think that we have any other questions.
Well, that was fantastic. Thank you all for filling in my time.
Yes, the support. So what we'll do is Caleb and Brent are ready. So we'll start that a little early. I'm going to give you guys a 5-minute break, and let's meet back here. Let's just make it even at 5:50. I'll give you guys 7 minutes because I'm feeling generous. All right.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful to have you. And I'll go ahead and put a poll up, and we'll talk to you guys in a few minutes. Stuart, I did have another question that came in, if you want to answer it, on what makes you different than the competition.
Okay, that's always an interesting question. Yeah, let's go for it. So one of the things that I've always felt was different in my approach is a couple of things. I start from the Prophet 21 perspective, and I want to move towards the website. The majority of e-commerce vendors, they have a website, they know how to make the website work, and they want to make Prophet 21 work with it. Prophet 21 doesn't always play nice with other technologies. So knowing and having a full understanding of what Prophet 21's capabilities really are makes a difference in where you end up on the website. I also really like working with my customers to solve their problems and to make their websites operate the way that their businesses operate. So one of the things that I'm interested in is making sure that your website answers the questions and does the things that your customers would expect if they called in customer service or they walked into your warehouse. And so it's making sure that you're not getting a cookie cutter solution to something, that your website actually operates the way your business operates. So it's kind of the short version of that.